This is the Be One Change One podcast, where our mission is to help listeners define values, practice integrity, and inspire change.
Our vision is to mentor men and empower them to achieve more by taking responsibility for shaping their own lives.
He's CAS, an evolving man who has been shaped by adversity and continues to grow through his imperfections.
And he's Roscoe, an imperfect work in progress that tries to suck less every day.
Between us, we have over 40 years of Air Force fighter pilot experience with countless hours as trainers, instructors, and mentors.
Join us and learn to take responsibility for your own life as we dive into subjects from leadership to resilience to vulnerability.
Be the one who changes their course. Be decisive, driven, and purposeful. Set the example for others. Lead. We wish we'd had this show when we were younger men.
Be the one.
All right, I think we're on.
We are on.
So I don't know about you, but dude, I've been looking forward to this one for a little bit.
Yeah, I know you have.
This is, and
These are fun.
well, but I got to say that I got a little bit of an inferiority complex right now because I just saw your Star Wars pin on your fucking Crocs.
Oh, yeah.
And your little Star Wars Galaxy
Galaxy's Edge
poster. Yeah, the Galaxy's Edge poster. So I feel like I'm outmatched.
Yeah.
Automatically.
The Star Wars pin on my Crocs, I just got those for my birthday, man.
Yeah.
Those Crocs, my kids got those for me. They put a Star Wars pin on it, so
that's good on you for having the masculinity to rock Crocs in the first place.
Right,
but then,
man.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
Cool. Well, I don't even know how to really break into this other than to say we're going to talk about Star Wars for the next hour.
That's right.
Fucking however long. And
well, we had a lot of fun doing the
Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah. And so we thought, because we grew up with 4, 5, 6, what?
Yeah.
With the original trilogy, that we would go ahead and do a little deep dive into some of the characters. Although, this one was a little more difficult than the Top Gun one to an extent, because there's just, dude, I got to tell you, going back and watching those now, and I think it's mostly just life and age has made me bitter.
It's different.
Yeah, it's totally different. It's different, right? And
well, there's a lot of characters.
But you can draw a lot of dialogue.
You can draw a lot of lines of parallel, though, between the characters that were in Top Gun Maverick and some of the characters that are in Star Wars, and just focusing on the main characters anyway. Yeah. There's still only like 6 of them, but I felt the same way, dude. And that was a discussion that we had, was when we started talking about Star Wars. It was like, well, which trilogy are we going to do? Are we going to do the first trilogy? And well, how do you define the first trilogy? Is it the first one that came out, or is it 4, 5? Or 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, what? Or holy crap, man! So the original Star Wars series that came out in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yep.
Episodes 4, 5, and 6. New Hope, Empire, and Jedi.
Yes.
Is what we decided to go with.
That's
the OG fucking Star Wars.
That's man. Right.
Yeah. So right off the bat, like, one of the first scenes that's in there was, you get to see Luke being the whiny bitch.
Oh my God, he's such a whiny little bitch in that movie, especially the first one. I
mean, the opening scene on the little cruiser, or whatever, where Darth Vader comes in and kind of you immediately know who the bad guy is.
Yep.
Which is kind of interesting. A lot of shows aren't like that. They kind of have a little bit of build up, but you immediately know who the bad guy is. I love how George Lucas did. It's very, on the good side, you got the earthy tones.
Yeah.
That make you feel warm and fuzzy, and then on the bad guy side, it's all black and whites and deep red.
It's very sterile too,
it is,
right? Like the Empire ships are pristine and clean, and then the
got a good janitor
service. It's funny too, right? And like all the Empire ships have these really sharp edges, where all the Rebel ships are all rounded, and smooth,
feel good versus
I'm sure there was intention behind that.
Well, I mean, have you ever gone back and like listened to some of the stuff that he's talked about over the years and some of the interviews that he's done? All of that stuff was intentional.
Yeah.
The rounded edges, the earthy tones, and the very, like, with on the Rebel side, I guess we just call them the Rebel side, and what the
Empire,
dark side, or the Empire.
Yeah.
On the Rebel side, it's all earthy stuff, and all of their bases tend to be very nature-y type. I mean, Hoth, I guess you can make an argument,
not so much,
but still, I mean. Most of their places, Alderaan was a very earthy type planet, and then you look at, like you said, very sterile on the other side. Man, gosh,
it's a nice contrast.
What an epic dichotomy that they have, just in the design of the different things, from the wardrobes and the ships all the way. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So where do you want to start?
Fuck, I don't know, dude.
Well, you brought up Luke.
Well, okay. Who shot first, Han or Guido?
Oh, That's a good question. I think Han got the shot off.
I think probably Han. Yeah. He was definitely more accurate, but probably Han. Yeah,
I think Han did. I think Han hitting him first is what caused Guido to miss.
You think?
I do.
Oh, that's a good, interesting theory. Okay. Yeah. Or Guido drew too fast and didn't center his sights or something.
What was bounty hunter? You better be able to draw pretty fast and center your sights.
Close quarter combat, though, man. Plus, he had that big fucking nose.
Yeah, you can't miss that.
His mouth.
You really can't miss that close unless something takes you out of it.
Yeah, that's good. C-3PO in the early scenes from the I guess she was calling herself Senator
Leia?
Senator Oranga, was that her name?
Oh yeah.
Oranga, I think was her like given last name or something. Yeah. You'd have to go back to episode 1, 2, 3 to find that out. But anyways, when they're on the cruiser there and Darth Vader comes in and says, "No, you have the plans and you are a traitor," and all that shit, you know. Well, C-3PO's character is automatic. Like immediately you understand his character. He is a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
He is a fucking Nancy. He is negative about everything. He's always looking at the odds and shit. He never throughout the entire trilogy has a can-do attitude.
No, well, he's a complete catastrophizer, right? Anything that happens, it's the end of the world.
That's right.
It's I mean, I don't know how many times he says we're done for, but he says it about 1 million times on that fucking show.
A rancor.
Yeah, we're done for, you know? And so everything, he's a complete catastrophizer who, you know, protocol droid, so he wants to follow, he's a rule follower, right? But completely rigid. Like his boundaries are, I have to operate within the rules, and if anything goes wrong, it's the end of the world.
Well, his whole job is to serve people. What do we even call them? People? Are they humans?
What, the droids?
No, I'm talking about in the Star Wars universe, the bipedal humanoids.
That's fine. Yeah.
Can we just call them humans for this? Or technically they're aliens, but to us they're aliens.
But he likes to play the martyr too. I don't know if you realize that, right? Because he always thinks he's right, and so when things go the way that he thought they were going to,
I told you.
It's the I told you so.
I told you so. Yeah.
Fuck. So if you have a C-3PO in your life,
eject
that's the relation. That's the first relationship to cut.
Put him in the trash compactor. Him and R2 have an interesting relationship in that they're kind of married in a sense, but they're so polar opposites. Like R2 is like, he's dude, give me the job. I'll do the job. I'll take the job. I don't care what the job is. And oh, by the way, everywhere in the Star Wars universe, you can get there on 3 little tiny wheels.
Yeah.
By the way, that was pretty cool. But
everything's hackable by one little thing that you plug into something and do a little spin.
He doesn't mind sticking his thing in a foreign hole and trying to figure shit out.
He saves the day all the time because of it.
I'm telling you, man. He got fried a few times.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, all right. So episode 4, New Hope. Droids are beamed down. We get kind of our first look at Luke and where he ended up versus Leia and where she ended up. So,
yeah, well, Luke's. So, I mean, it's hard we can talk to Luke via episodes because you see his evolution, right? From 4 to 5.
He's a young man growing
6,
up.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's just it at the beginning. I think he's projecting youth, right? He's projecting some of the things that we
What do you think
talk
is
about.
late teens, maybe?
Late teens, maybe early 20s, somewhere in there, is probably where he's supposed to be. But it goes back to some of the things that we talk about, right? No self-awareness at all.
No, none.
He's got absolutely none, right?
Big dreams.
Yeah, he's got these huge dreams, right? He's been sheltered on Tatooine his whole life. But in that, right, the grass is always greener on the other side. I got to get to the academy. I've got to go do something else. Like, I'm not meant for this, right? Well, and that's part of the story, right? Because, like, are you familiar with the hero's journey? So the hero's journey, it goes all the way back to ancient Greek times, Odysseus, like all of the classical stories from back in the day. And I can break it down real quick because I actually wrote down like the steps of the hero's journey, and you can see it in Luke in this. You can actually see it in a bunch of the characters, but Luke primarily because he's the focus. But so with the hero's journey, there's a couple of things that always happen, right? They live in a world that they presently take as given and sufficient. And they're often like a prince or a princess. Sometimes they even have divine origin, right? So he's not a prince or a princess per se, but right, he's the Skywalker family.
I mean, technically he's a prince.
So but they always know nothing about it.
Yeah.
Right? And then they have the courage to leave home for an adventure of some type. So there's some kind of catalyst that drives them away from wherever they're at the time.
Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru died.
Yeah, and it's not really to solve any problem necessarily, but it's just to go get outside of their present comfort zone. Because, what happens when you get outside your fucking comfort zone? That's where growth happens.
Yeah, good
right?
things happen. Yeah.
Weird. We've never talked about that. And then on the journey, they actually find out what their real problem is. What's the real problem that they have to face? What's the real thing that they have to overcome? Right? So they're almost always wounded in some way. Sometimes it's emotionally, sometimes it's physically. Most of the time, it's both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, right? Yeah. In episode 5, gets his hand chopped off, finds out Vader's his dad.
Yeah.
All this shit goes down, right?
Oh, what a bummer, man.
So it's a major dilemma, and the whole story pivots around the resolution and the trial of that result, right? So that's it in 6. What's he going to do? Is he going to turn to the dark side? Is he going to kill his dad and become the Emperor's bitch? Or is he going to, stay the path and be the Jedi?
Yeah.
So there's typically a first task, which they think is the only task, but it's just the task that sets them on the road. And then most of the time they return back to where they started from, with the intention of passing on lessons learned. Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the hero's journey in a nutshell, if you will. It's a very vague,
but
very simple explanation of it.
But this is spot on, because if you read and study into storytelling, there's only like 7 stories that have ever been told. They're just told in various different ways. And usually they follow a 3-act structure. There's this build up, there's a little bit of a letdown, and then there's the denouement, and then the conclusion. Right. And you can see that you can see it over the individual movies, for one. And then when you look at them as a trilogy, you can see them across the trilogy.
Yeah.
And then you can take all 3 trilogies and put them together and kind of see the whole thing. And it's a normal story of good v evil. And you got a protagonist that's on this character arc of finding himself and figuring shit out. And then eventually he passes lessons learned down.
Yeah. But I think in episode 4, for me, Luke is kind of the epitome of youth, right? Life is not fair. He's got the woe me's. I'm stuck here. They won't let me go. Woe me. I got to do the droids. I got to go do the fields. I got to stay for one more season. And he's very short-sighted and very naive about everything that's happening around him. And idealistic to a certain extent, which I think we all are when we're young. When we're young. But like, he's super impatient too, right? Like, and he's super impatient through the whole movie, really, until you get to episode 6.
It's really episode 6 where he turns the corner.
And even there, he's impatient and even, I think, a little impulsive at times, but it's much more regulated.
Yeah.
So we go back to our conversations around emotional intelligence. You can almost see like him going through the process of, like self-awareness to self-mastery to the relationship side of things and all those different pieces, right? That self-management piece. You almost see it in episode 6, but you do see it a little bit in episode 6. But
I think Yoda dying in episode 6 was a turning point for Luke, because a couple of things that Yoda said in that last conversation was, "You're the last Jedi, and you have to go face Vader." And at that point, Luke kind of, accepted his responsibility in this role that he's become. He kind of accepted that responsibility a little bit, and from that point on, he became a lot more stoic. Yeah. And you can see it when he's on the new battle station. I don't think they called it a Death Star. They called it a battle station. It looked just like a Death Star in episode 6, but you can see him standing there by the window watching all his friends get fried and shit. And he's just kind of standing there with his hands clasped and just kind of taking it all in. And you can tell that he's really processing some shit.
Yeah. Well, and
he's got his emotions a lot more under control.
Yeah. He's got them under control. Yeah. That's that self-management piece. Yeah. Right. And so, but yeah, in episode 4, like even when he goes off with Obi-Wan and they're doing like the training on the Millennium Falcon, everything's too hard. Nothing's coming fast enough, right? There's that impatience. It's
you really see that on Dagobah, though.
Yeah,
that really jumps out when he starts training with Yoda.
Yep. So yeah, not really very emotionally intelligent or even empathetic, because I mean, his fucking aunt and uncle are smoldering corpses. And he's just like, I guess I'll go with you now.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to go fight the dark side.
Yeah. So, which is funny, right? Because the Force is all about searching your feelings.
But he doesn't know that. He doesn't know that. He doesn't.
Anyways.
He just learned about the Force 5 minutes ago from an old guy who lives in that fucking cave.
I will tell you what, the Force is important, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm not sure how he was a good pilot, because that sand speeder that he had on Tatooine didn't seem like it was all that too much the shit. But he goes from that, they kind of give a backstory to all of a sudden he's going to go to war in an X-wing that he's probably never flown before.
Yep.
And he's going to be the cat that fucking gets the photons down the hole, so to speak.
Dude, I said the same thing to Katie while we're watching real time. I was like, okay, this guy was just running a fucking sand speeder.
He'd have hit something.
And then all of a sudden he's promoted to X-wing flight lead. Yeah. Like, no. Yeah, okay, there's Hollywood and there's reality.
Yeah, he'd have crashed that thing so fast.
In the real Rebel Army, he would have. Well, let me rewind back to we were talking about Luke and his youth and growing up on Tatooine the way that he did, kind of running errands for Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru and helping the family sustain is really what they were doing. You know, they were living from season to season. That's not terribly unlike my upbringing, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, we lived on a farm and we lived season to season. It was either planting season or weed control season or harvest season. And then there was deer season in the wintertime. And our circadian rhythms kind of revolved around that. And so as a kid growing up out in the sticks, living that kind of lifestyle, I can totally empathize with the way that he felt about, man, all the cool shit in the world is over there. But I'm stuck here. And I knew when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to stay there.
Yeah.
I knew that my life was not going to be there in Transylvania, Louisiana.
Yep.
Right. So it was over there. So to a degree, I can get down with the way that they portrayed that part of his life.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of my big takeaway for Luke in episode 4 anyways.
Yeah, same. It was really neat to watch his evolution through it. And I took a lot of the same notes that you did where, you see him go from this kid who's just very naive and very sheltered. And I've told so many stories on the podcast of how I was that guy. I was very naive and very sheltered. I didn't even know what sushi was until I was like 25 years old. And my kids been eating it since they were like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Right. Luke is a lot the same way. And then you mix his personality with Han Solo's personality, who's got a little more world experience, a
lot more worldly.
Been around the block a few times, and they're probably maybe 10 years apart or so.
Yeah.
Something like that. Han's probably late 20s, early 30s at best. But just the two different.
It's a huge juxtaposition.
It's very different, man.
Yeah.
Like throughout the entire series, there's not a problem that Han Solo didn't have a solution for. It may not have been the best solution.
Yeah.
But he was the kind of guy that he would come up with something and he would act.
He's super resourceful.
Yeah.
And very decisive.
Very decisive.
And the other thing about Han is he can keep his cool under pressure, because every fucking time shit's going down, there's something wrong with the Millennium Falcon. Yeah. And him and Chewie are running around that goddamn thing trying to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
And keep their wits about them at the same time.
Busted ass ship.
So, before we get to Han, though, if you want, it might be better just for consistency, just to follow the arc of the characters through the 3.
Go for it,
Since we had to watch 3 different films.
Dude, I've got 2 notes written down.
Otherwise, we're going to jump around a whole bunch. So why don't we just stay on Luke and kind of finish his arc, if you want.
Go for it.
So episode 5, what'd you see in episode 5?
Episode 5 is, that's Empire Strikes Back. Yep. And that is by design a darker episode. And if you look at this as a 3-act structure, this is the downside of, you got this big build up all the way up. And then now you've got this downside on the backside of Act 2. Right. And that's kind of where Empire ends, is on this. It ends on a little bit of a darker note. Yeah. Okay. They kind of won, but they kind of didn't. I mean, Han got fucking frozen in carbonite and sent off to Jabba the Hutt, and Luke just lost a hand and found out his dad's the bad guy and shit. So you starting at the beginning of that, like, it's all smiles. They're on Hoth and things are going well, right? We're defending this fucking ice cave that they live in, and everything is pointing to things being kind of copacetic, right? Well, then the droids come down and they find out that the fucking
rebel base
is there and all that shit. And now, all hell breaks loose, and Luke loses another fucking Wizzo. He's a terrible pilot because he keeps losing his fucking Wizzos.
No doubt.
Dak was terrible, but we'll save that for a sidebar.
Also seated in the wrong direction. But we
seriously, man,
I know.
What Wizzo worth his salt gets in a fucking jet that points backwards? Like, no, man. We have demands. This is not the way shit works. So then, yeah, I mean, he gets beat up by the Tauntaun or the snow creature, and then he lives inside a Tauntaun for a little bit. And Ben tells him, "Hey, you got to go to Dagobah and find this dude named Yoda, right?" And you see the same things that he was doing in episode 4. He's doing the same shit when he gets to Dagobah. He's bitching and whining about everything, and oh my god, I'm stuck on fucking Dagobah.
Yeah, well, he's still very, to me, emotionally reactive. Like he still doesn't think things through.
Why can't we go see Yoda now? I want to see Yoda now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
when he's fucking looking at him, right? Because he has these misperceptions built in his mind. That's the naivety to a certain extent, right? He's very rigid cognitively, right? He sees the world through a very specific lens, and it hasn't been broadened for him yet. And so he's thinking, oh, well, I'm going to go find Yoda. So it's going to be this badass Jedi warrior, right? Not this little fucking
image he had in his head.
Yeah, right. This shrunken little green creature that, is walking around hitting R2 with a stick or whatever. And
his view of the universe, though, is kind of myopic to that point.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, he doesn't have a lot of, he's like Roscoe going to basic training,
But that goes back to some of the things that we talk about on the podcast too, right? Which is, guys, get out there, like go try things, go experience things, because it's through that experience that you build that lens that you view the world through starts to grow, right? You start to build some situational awareness.
Opens your aperture.
It totally opens your aperture, right? Yep. And that can lead to, better understanding around self-awareness and self-inspection and some things like that too, especially when you have to go through hard things. But yeah, like still just very emotionally reactive, doesn't really, because like when he's hung upside down in the Sasquatch's, the ice Sasquatch cave, and he uses the Force, he gets his lightsaber, he cuts it down, he cuts the arm of that thing off. Why not fucking just kill the thing and stay in the goddamn cave?
Right.
Instead of
freezing
your damn ass off.
Like, you're in an ice cave. So, it's really not that bad in there.
Yeah, right? So anyway.
Yeah. So when he's on Dagobah, like, one of the images that came to my mind was throughout that whole scene, which is probably my favorite scene in this whole trilogy, is everything that happens on Dagobah. I think is really cool because you see kind of that transformation. If you took all the Dagobah scenes and put them all together and just watched them, I think you see Luke go from whiny ass bitch to, okay, I get it now.
Starting to, anyways.
Yeah. One of the things that jumped out to me, though, man, is something that we talk about on the podcast a lot, and it's mentorship, right? And Luke was very dismissive of the mentorship piece of it, not just the Jedi training part of it. But when Yoda was saying things like, hey, man, you can't go to your friends right now because you're going to fuck everything up. All right, please just listen to me. I've been around for 900 years. Yeah. All right,
I might have a thing.
I got some SA on this, man. If you go do this, you're gonna fuck everything up. And he's like, no, I'm going. Right, and that's kind of that mentorship piece that we talked about on the podcast before. And it's, man, gosh, I wouldn't change a lot in my past if I could go back, because that made me the person that I am today. But I wish that maybe I would have gotten a notebook out and listened to some of those old guys every now and then.
Yeah, well, and I think the lesson there is too, sometimes you have to temper your impatience or maybe even your passion towards something, because there might be people out there that have been down the road that you're trying to go down that know a better way of doing it, and they can see the pitfalls in front of you. And if you're so hard-headed not to listen to some of that, you end up making it worse. You may end up making it harder on yourself than it needs to be.
That's right.
Like getting your fucking hand chopped off and, having one of your friends frozen in carbonite.
I think a lot of us, I think everybody probably has a story like that. Like if you hadn't listened to Jim and some of the tutelage he gave you, you may have still ended up here, but you would have done it the hard way.
Oh, totally.
And I kind of did it the hard way because I didn't fucking listen to those old cats.
Yeah.
I mean, in some respects, I wish that I would have gone back and maybe done things differently. But again, it's a flip of a coin because it made me the person that I am now.
And I get that it's Hollywood and Luke has to make some of the decisions that he makes in the movie because it furthers the plot. But, through the lens of what we talk about on the podcast, like,
I think it's spot on though, man.
It is.
He's a young guy and he's very emotionally attached to Leia and Han and Chewie, and he wants to go save the day. Look at me, man. I can stand on one arm and lift rocks. I know the Force now.
Yeah.
So I kind of get that. He's got a little bravado going,
yeah,
you know, and a little bit of savior. I'm going to go save the day, and you know, I'm a badass with the Force now, and you're kind of
not really, not there just yet.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah. So then at the end of 5, right, he goes and faces Vader, and at first it seems like he's holding his own. He's doing all right. You know, he's doing okay. You know, he jumps out of the carbonite machine.
Vader fought that entire fight one-handed.
Yeah,
I see that.
Yeah,
he holds his lightsaber with one hand. He's just like ding, 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 ding.
But the best part, I think the part that I love the most when he recognizes that he's really outmatched is when he they get to that scene where he's in front of the glass window, you know, and Vader comes walking in and he pulls out his lightsaber and Vader just starts throwing shit at him with the Force. Boom. Boom. Just like, whatever, dude. Like, I don't even need to fight you with a lightsaber.
I'm going to teach you a lesson here real quick.
Boom, 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 just thumps him.
Yeah.
And then he ends up going flying out the window.
How about this one? Luke, I am your father. I didn't realize it until we were watching it the other night, but that's not what he says. He doesn't. Everybody has it. I mean, it's on fucking t-shirts.
Yeah.
It's on bumper stickers. Luke, I am your father. He doesn't say, Luke, I am your father. He says, no, I am your father.
Yeah.
And Katie named it. I can't remember the name of it, but she said it's like it's a thing. Like where you here's one. At the end of the song, We Are the Champions by Queen. Everybody says, we are the champions of the world. He doesn't say that. At the end of the song, it just says, we are the champions, and it fades out. Right? So I need to look that up. I'm going to put that on my to-do list of
there's a name
things.
for that.
There is a name for it.
I don't know what
it's not a syndrome or something, but it's a fucking thing. But he does not say, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But what a shock to Luke's system.
Yeah.
Like, didn't see that one coming.
Well, and I think it's not just a shock to him because of the realization that it's his dad, but I mean, dude, he's basically been lied to by Obi-Wan, like everybody in his life to this point, right? Like
Obi-Wan's such a fucking politician too.
Yeah, right.
Well, everything was true from a certain point of view,
from perspective, depending on the perspective you look at it.
You man,
yeah, right. And so I think some of it is just the shock to his system of shoot, all these people that I believed in, Yoda. Well, I guess Yoda didn't necessarily tell him that Darth wasn't his dad, but Ben and all that stuff lied to him about it.
Yeah. I kind of see it from, I can see the argument from Obi-Wan's point of view.
Yeah.
And he says, well, technically your dad is Anakin and that dude died, right? That guy is no more.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. But it is a fucking politician's answer, man.
Yeah.
Well, really, the border's closed.
You go back to what we were talking about before, though, and just how emotionally immature he was. He probably couldn't have handled that truth at that point.
Well, I mean, so let's go back to episode 4, and they're in Ben's cave, and they're talking about shit. And he goes, "Here's your dad's here's your dad's lightsaber. Oh, by the way, your dad is Darth Vader, and he's the king of the fucking Empire." I don't think he would have taken that very well.
Probably not.
So maybe I'm not going to go fight the Empire. I'm going to go back to the fucking moisture mines over here with Uncle Owen and Aunt Veru.
Yeah. All right. So that's the end of episode 5. So you can see the growth, right?
Yeah.
The growth is there, but still kind of a lot of naivety, a lot of
he's
immaturity that exists in him. Okay. So then we get to 6, which is Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
And the first thing I notice is that he's all murdered out.
Yeah.
Like he's in the all black, right? Like,
is that him subconsciously playing to the dark side?
Maybe.
Is that the subconscious messaging that George Lucas is trying to get
but he's all murdered out, right?
We don't know yet.
So and he still doesn't think things through all the way, but he doesn't completely overreact in the moment anymore.
He's a little more stoic.
Yeah, a little more stoic.
And I really think that his experience on Dagobah in episode 6 is really what kind of just like slammed it home for him. Like, okay, I have a responsibility here. I may not be up for it just yet, but I have a responsibility. I'm going to take that weight on my shoulders.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I kissed my sister, and that's going to have that's going to have long lasting effects.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's got a mantle to carry now, right? Like you were saying before, he's got responsibility that he has to accept.
Yeah.
And so, that's a good thing in the sense that it crystallizes what he has to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
It crystallizes his goals, his actions. In some ways, it becomes kind of his inner value system, that he's operating off of, that's driving his actions, because he knows exactly what he has to do. He knows when they get to Endor that he needs to go back and he has to go face Vader. Like, he's got to go through this process.
Oh yeah, he says that. He's
that's
like,
his crucible.
I shouldn't have come. I'm endangering this mission. I got to get off this. Yeah.
Yep. So, anyways,
I get that a little bit, but I don't think it was a self-revelation on his part.
No,
I think it was it was forced on him almost.
Yeah,
it's like, here, man, here's this big pile of shit. You're the last Jedi. You carry it for a while.
Yeah.
I've been carrying it for 900 years, bitch.
It's your turn.
Yeah. So I don't know if he came by it the way that we talk about.
Not the way that we talk about it. I don't think there was any great exercise in defining his own personal values that drove those decisions. It was more of a situational thing for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's valid though. But he still, that scene where he's on the battle station with the Emperor there, you can tell he's kind of holding his shit together a little bit more.
Yeah,
he eventually breaks.
Yeah.
He eventually breaks and kind of beats up Darth Vader, which I think he kind of let him win.
Yeah.
I mean, Darth Vader's kind of a badass, man.
Yeah, he is.
This dude's been a Jedi since he's like 5 fucking years old.
Yeah.
Luke's been a Jedi for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think he kind of let him win a little bit. But that's just my opinion. Anyways, I thought it was interesting the mind games that the Emperor played on him, though. He keeps feeding him this shit. Like, look at your friends; they're dying out there. Look at them. Don't you want to kill me and just put an end to all this? And he's kind of fueling that fire a little bit. And Luke, he keeps trying to stamp it out, but in the end, he's like, "Fuck you guys," and goes for it. And at first, Darth Vader's like, you're not gonna beat up my Emperor. He's an old man, and shit." And then he's, by the end of that, even Vader's like, all right, this he's whacked out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I think it's, to your point, I think Darth recognizes in this moment. So up until now, it's all been about bringing Luke to the Emperor, right? So he could take measured steps to do that. It wasn't about killing Luke. It was about getting him to where he needed to be, so that he could follow in his footsteps. But I think at some point there's an ultimate realization that Luke's not just there to operate and stand by his side. Like, Luke's there to kill Vader to take his place, because there can only be 2 Sith at one time, right? So
Hey, well, the Emperor even says it. He says, take your dad's place and join me by my side.
Yeah. So I think Vader realizes in that moment that he has to die for Luke to fulfill that role.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he has the capacity to actually kill his own son.
That was my big thing. I think that Luke is spot on when he says, dude, there's still good in you, man.
There is.
And in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to prove it to you, because I'm going to challenge you to kill your own kid.
Yeah.
And Vader ultimately gives up and gives in and says, no, I can't do it.
Yeah. Nope. Yep. And kills, we thought killed the Emperor, but until once you watch 7, 8, 9, then you realize that didn't actually happen. Which goes back to Yoda's comment in episode 5, where Luke leaves and he says, there's one more.
There's another.
Yeah, there is another. Yeah. So
I so want to have a whole episode on Kylo Ren.
Everybody,
we could do
7, 8, 9 next, man.
Spoiled little rich kid. Fucking, what a punk. God. Like, you think that Luke is a punk in the beginning of this trilogy? Kylo Ren is a punk. He is a punk ass bitch, man. Sorry, I'm not a Kylo Ren fan at all.
Anyways, but I think the other thing too is, right, up until that point, Luke's kind of brash, but in that process too, he learns compassion for his father, right? Because at first, when he recognizes it, like he's like, this can't be true. You're pure evil. Mm-hmm. He was going out there to kill Vader and get it over with. And then he realizes that, holy shit, that's my dad. And he has compassion for him, which is why he can't go through with killing Vader, let alone taking the Emperor with him. And then that opens up the opportunity for Vader to actually hoist up the Emperor and throw him off the ledge.
I don't know if it's just compassion for Vader. I think it's just compassion in general. Yeah, because you saw it with him and Leia and their interactions, and then him and Han at the end,
Well,
and
again, let's go back to, what did we talk about? We're hardwired for connection, right? So when you look at the rebels, right, all of those people are building relationships, and they're important relationships that matter, right? There's your 5, it's Han, Chewie, Leia, Luke, R2.
Don't say C-3PO.
No, it's C-3PO. He's out, dude.
He plays a vital role in the show.
But it's Orlando even is part of that group. to a certain extent
he
in
gets
5
there,
and 6.
yeah,
Yeah. So, but it's all about building relationships and coming together and working together. Where when you look at the Empire, what's it all based on, dude? It's all based on fear. It's you're gonna fucking do what I say, and you're gonna get it done, or I'm gonna
choke you
I'm
out.
gonna choke you out
screen.
with the Force until you die, and then the guy standing next to you gets to see you die, and he's up next. So don't fuck it up.
Don't you wish you could be on a Zoom call with somebody and just choke them out?
Yeah, sometimes.
That'd be so
badass.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. That's the big difference. Everything Vader does or the Emperor does, it's all based in fear. Yeah. It's you're going to do what I tell you to because you're afraid of me and you're afraid of what I'm going to do to you if you don't get it done. It's none of it's based on loyalty or belief or a relationship that's been established with somebody.
Well, so I'm looking at this and I was trying to figure this out, and you'll probably know the answer spot on, but I'm looking at the Empire and their hierarchy that they have. They have a military side, and then they have the 2 Sith, and the Emperor and Darth Vader are clearly running the show. But if we had to compare that to something today that we can kind of get our minds around, the United States and the way that our government is structured doesn't work, right? So it's weird. It's like a monarchy almost.
Yeah.
I was thinking more like Britain, where you got a monarchy that's kind of in charge, but then you got a parliament.
It's more like Russia or North Korea, man.
Maybe.
Where you've really got, one kind of supreme authority.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of henchmen underneath that.
Maybe. Yeah. So, I mean, they had generals and all this shit, but then when Darth Vader didn't like what they were doing, he just fucking choked them out and promoted the next guy. And I told Katie when we were watching it, I said, he's like Abraham Lincoln. He's just off in generals. Like, she goes, wait a minute, Abraham Lincoln killed a bunch of generals? Like, no, but he fired a bunch.
Yeah. Anyways. So, yeah. So that's kind of the
so that's Luke.
That's Luke.
Who's, I mean, he's the central character, right? The whole fucking thing is built on the Skywalker,
him being the Jedi,
the Skywalker family, really. Yeah. When you go back to episode 1, it's all about Anakin and the Skywalker family, and throughout the end of the show, episode 9, it kind of follows that. But cool. You want to go back and pick another character to go through?
Who do you want to talk about?
Oh, fuck, I don't know, man. Pick one.
Let's do Han.
All right. Han, the first time we see him is in Mos Eisley in the cantina. And I think your initial impressions of him, you could take to the Top Gun Maverick, and he's kind of the hangman.
He is.
Of the group. But I wrote this down as I was watching the show. I wrote it down and I said, he's got the fighter pilot attitude. He really does, man, because he's a problem solver. He's decisive. He doesn't really take no for an answer.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a little selfish, and he kind of...
That would be the only piece about it is he's, at least in the beginning of the trilogy, he's in it for himself.
He is.
Right?
And
he's very self-focused, very self-driven, very self-centered in that respect.
But you can tell that he's got a lot of pride in himself. You can tell that he has a desire to do well.
Yep.
And I thought of that Robin Olds quote where, it's cockiness, but there's something else, man. He's confident. He's very confident in his abilities, and he's not above just making some shit up and seeing if it works.
Yep.
And we talk about all the time when we talk about peak performance, and you sticking your nose into a fight at 500 miles an hour, you got to make a decision, and you don't know if it's going to be right, but you got to do something.
Well, he's like, out of all of them, by far, he is the best at making the pivot.
Yeah.
Right in the moment, in the heat.
That shit didn't work. Let's do something else.
Making a pivot and going in a different direction to see if that's going to work and save the day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but look at where he's at on his life trajectory. Right. He's been doing what he's doing for a while now. He's got a lot of experience and a lot of situational awareness.
Yep.
He's been around the galaxy, so he knows what things are. Like when they go into the asteroid. I think it was in Empire when they go into the asteroid and fly up that fucking snake's anus or whatever. And he knew exactly what the things were outside chewing on the cables. Like, those are whatever's. I forget the name of them. We'll make a round around the ship and blast them all. So he's got a lot of SA. He's got a lot of experience. Which helps him make those decisions real time.
Well, he's a realist too, right? It's not about a specific ideology or, he's like you're saying, he's just got a ton of situational awareness, and he understands the problem in front of him. And he knows he attacks the problem in front of him. And if what he doesn't work, he just pivots and continues to attack the problem in front of him.
Yeah. One of the cool things though is I think at the end of episode 4, you can really see that he really longs for a tribe.
Yeah.
He really wants a tribe, you know, and he's got this like, man, I got a price on my head and I got to go pay Jabba. So yeah, I want my reward. I want to get out of here. But then he comes in and he saves the day and he gets his fucking medal at the end from Leia and all that, which by the way, they didn't give Chewie a fucking medal.
I know, which is
fucking
bullshit.
hating on the Wizzo. It's this whole fucking George Lucas is a Wizzo hater. I'm just going to say it. Anyways, so yeah, but you can tell that he's looking for a tribe.
Yeah,
he really is. Even if it comes across as subconscious and he's got kind of this brash bravado type exterior,
no, he's
you can tell that he really wants that.
Yeah. I agree with that, man, because you see it, right? Because at the beginning of episode 5, he's still fucking hanging around.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So at the end of episode 4, he's stayed with them through that whole transition to Hoth. Yeah. And standing that thing up, and he's still getting ready to leave. He's still saying, "I'm out of here. I got to go pay off Jabba." You know, blah blah blah.
Oh
blah.
Darn! The princess needs me again. Yeah, I guess I'll stick around a little more.
Still, yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a good point, man. Is he is looking for a tribe, and we talk about that on the podcast, right, man? It's important to find your tribe, whatever that is, and important to pay attention to the 5 people around you.
That's right.
Like, if you look at Han, we don't know who his circle of 5 was before that. Obviously, Chewie's in there.
He was probably running in some bad circles.
He's running in some bad circles, you know, with bounty hunters chasing him and being a smuggler and a space pirate or whatever it is that he was doing, you know, so probably not great. And now he's in this other group where you've got some more dynamic characters, right? Some people that are willing to build a relationship, that are willing to look out for your best interests, are willing to support you and want to have you around and want you to be part of the team. And it's like all those things we talk about, man, when you think about your 1 of 5, right? Like, find people that are going to support, find people that are going to go in the same direction that you want to go. They're going to help you get to where you need to be in life. And that's kind of what happens. That's the evolution that you see with him over the course of the 3.
I think he really enjoyed the role of kind of being a mentor to Luke as well in a lot of ways. And they didn't always have the best relationship because they were kind of thrown into it. It took them a while to develop that, but I think in a lot of ways, because Han is a little bit older and wiser and more traveled and just has a lot more SA.
He's a natural leader
than Luke does. Yeah, I think he kind of took on that role of like, hey man, come here, I'm going to take you under my wing for a little bit. I'm going to show you some stuff.
Yeah. For sure.
That's pretty cool.
Well, and I think loyalty is a big thing to him, right? I mean, if you think about how long he and Chewie have been together, that's a relationship built on loyalty, right? And he's actually a very loyal individual. And you see that because they're fucking shutting the doors in Hoth and Luke's not back in yet. And what does he do?
He jumps on his
fucking
tauntaun
and goes out into it.
Yeah.
Because, and what does he say? My friend's out there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not. You guys can close the doors if you want. My friend's out there.
Yeah.
I'm going to find my friend. You know, and then getting back to the resourceful piece of it for him, like, how ingenious to fucking slit open the tauntaun that just died and shove Luke inside to keep him warm.
First of all, how did he know how to work the lightsaber?
I don't know, but badass.
Did he like look on the bottom of it and go, "Oh, push this button"? Like,
there's probably a red button on it, like there are other ones. Yeah. Never mind. Yeah. So obviously, and the other thing I loved about talking about being resourceful, making a pivot, making a way. Remember that scene in, I think it's episode 5, when the Empire's first chasing them and they can't find him?
Oh, he sticks on the back of the thing.
Stuck to the back.
I'm just gonna float away with the trash.
Yeah, he's so smart.
Which, oh, by the way, okay, so the Millennium Falcon is not a small ship.
No,
it's. I mean, but when you compare it to like Star Destroyers, yeah, sure. But when you compare it to other just like little cruisers or whatever, it's not a tiny ship. The trash that they floated away with, what the fuck is the Empire doing to have trash that's like 3 times as big,
no doubt, right,
as the Millennium Falcon? I thought that was a little bit bullshit.
Yeah, maybe so.
Whatever.
But then at the end of episode 5, right, so you kind of see this arc for him of kind of selfish in it for himself, this brash personality, which doesn't really, that brashness is always kind of there. That's kind of his cocky side, right?
It's a bravado, yeah.
But then it kind of goes into, loyalty. It moves into loyalty and community and building those relationships. And ultimately, I would say ends in sacrifice.
Maybe commitment for sure.
Sacrifice and commitment because, he gets frozen in carbonite. But then at the beginning of 6, after they free him, he comes back and he's like, yeah, he's a general. He's not a pirate anymore, right? He's given up.
General Solo.
Yeah, he's General Solo now, man. He's not doing that stuff anymore. And even lets Lando take the Millennium Falcon for the run against the Empire while he's on the moon. And he's sitting there going, I've got a bad feeling about this. I don't think I'm going to see her again. But he's willing to give up like the one object that's meant the most to him his entire life so far. He's willing to sacrifice to do what they're going to go do.
There's a lot of lesson in there too about knowing your role and playing your role at a high level.
Yeah.
And his role was to take the shuttle and try to get past the energy shield.
Yeah.
You know, so they could blow it up in episode 6. And could anybody else have done that? Probably, but they wouldn't have had Chewie with them. And the princess probably wouldn't have gone with them. And that, you take that nucleus of characters and the connections that they had, and like you said, the loyalty that they had, I think is what enabled that mission to be a success.
Yeah.
They needed that good, strong leader in Han Solo, but you also needed these supporting characters. And there's a lot of really good lessons to take out of that. You know, even for a young guy who's going to a new job or starting a new profession, like you're going to be given a role or you're going to earn a role. You got to play that role at a high level, man.
Yeah.
And don't worry about what Sally's doing next in the cubicle next to you, right? She's got a role. And I used to tell this to my football players all the time. There's 11 people on the football field, and 11 people have 11 different jobs. You cannot be worrying about what the other 10 guys are doing. You do your job and do your job well. And if 11 people do that, then the whole thing fucking works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Anyways, I think that's the kind of arc we see for him. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think in the end he's probably a little less cocky because he's got a little bit more connection with other people.
Agreed.
I think in the beginning he's a little isolated. It's just him and Chewie, and they're kind of on an island. But by the end, now he has a circle and he has a tribe, and I think that tampers that ego down just a little bit with him.
Yeah. Well, what's so interesting to me? Let me find this note. So, like, you know, it's interesting to me because when you talk about the dark side, it's all about anger, fear, aggression, oppression, right? And then you see these shadow sides of the individual characters too, right? We've talked about them as maybe unwanted identities, things like that, right? But they all have the shadow side, and so you can see at the beginning, like with Han, like his shadow side is that I'm gonna put up this front.
I'm gonna puff up.
I'm the big bad guy. I know better than you. You can't tell me. I've been around. I know what I'm doing. I'll get you your money. Don't worry about it. You know, he's always playing people off each other, things like that, you know. And you see it with Luke too, right? That underlying fear, that immaturity, those types of things that come up for him, you know. And then is he going to fall into the dark side? Is he going to give into the anger? Is he going to give into the aggression, you know, or can he actually be a fucking man and self-regulate and manage his emotions and make smart decisions while he's in that? And so it's just interesting that you can see these parallels, that there's these parallels that exist between the characters kind of throughout all three of the movies.
Yeah, something I thought was cool, and you kind of have to go back to episodes 1, 2, and 3 to see where Palpatine identifies Anakin and he sees his weak spot, right? Padme was kind of his weak spot, and I can exploit that, right? And it takes him 3 episodes to convince Anakin, by playing on that, convince him to join him in the dark side, right?
Well, he also plays on Anakin's, not to get off the ones that we watch, but he also plays off of Anakin's insecurity around himself, right?
Yeah, no, that's valid.
We talked about imposter syndrome in the pregame, right?
Yeah.
And Anakin has huge imposter syndrome, right? Yeah. Because he feels like he's being overlooked, like he's super powerful. He should already be a master. You know, he's got all these things going on in the back.
Sounds an awful lot like Luke.
Yeah, right. Very immature, very impatient, you know, and he's got this whole thing hanging over his head this whole time because they didn't find him until late. Not everybody believes in him. Not everybody believes in the prophecy, you know, so he's kind of this outlier that everybody's kind of looking sideways at most of the time. So he's always trying to prove himself. There's always something to prove, you know, and Palpatine plays off of that brilliantly because he's like, you know, they should have done X, Y, and Z with you by now. If you were with me, you'd be running the show, kind of a thing, right? Yeah. So he plays to that insecurity that he has.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of getting at, was Palpatine is kind of using the puppet strings on Anakin all the way up through until he turns him into Darth Vader at the end of episode 3. Whereas in 4, 5, and 6, you kind of see these relationships develop naturally. over the time. And that, I think, is an interesting dichotomy versus, when you look at Sith side versus good side or light side, where this is more, control and like
manipulate.
You said, manipulate. Yeah. Whereas this one, those relationships kind of develop naturally over the episodes, over the time.
Yeah, and they're based on things like loyalty and trust instead of fear and anger and manipulation.
Holy shit. How did we bring that all back to be one change one shit?
Right.
Huh?
Well, and dude, like when we've talked about, as you go through self-inspection and you've got to start taking a hard stock of relationships that you have in your life, like, look for those things.
Yeah.
Do those relationships carry loyalty and trust, and support and encouragement, or are they more manipulative and whatever else?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can kind of see that when Han and Lando meet. At the getting toward about 2/3 of the way through Empire. That was not exactly there wasn't a lot of ceremony around that. There was, like, I think both of them were standing there going,
they were trying to feel each other out.
I don't know about you. It's like two dogs circling each other. Like, and Han even says it like 3 times in there because, no, I don't trust him. He tells Chewie, he says, yeah, just, keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
We don't really know. Yeah, he's an old buddy, but he's a scoundrel. So, yeah. And then, of course, Lando has kind of a crisis of conscience, I think, when he knows that he's doing the wrong things, but it's from fear of death. And he kind of has a lot of remorse around that, which I think is what brings him over to the rebel side.
Well, absolutely. And the deal keeps changing, right? So he doesn't think, Han's not supposed to be given over to Boba Fett, and Princess Leia is supposed to be able to stay with him. And Vader keeps changing the nature of the deal. And that's when he's like, okay, I'm not doing this. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you.
I wish that I had a dude that I could control on my Apple Watch that had a thingy around his head, and I could just type into it, be like, go get me some fried chicken.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
And he would go get me some chicken wings.
That would be awesome. Okay, so anything else on Han?
I mean, we could talk about Han Solo. I think he's got his own movie, and then he carries on into the next episodes. And
I'm so glad that they kept Harrison Ford for all of it too. Nobody else can play that
dude. And Carrie Fisher playing Leia, even a lot of that was after her death.
Yeah.
But those scenes already being filmed and everything. Yeah. And I think, one of the things that stood out to me in episode 7 was, I think that even though they weren't together, they still had a very deeply rooted relationship.
Yeah.
And they tried their best to co-parent their spoiled little rich kid, punk ass fucking Kylo Ren. But you could tell, man, that even in that episode, they really loved each other. Yeah, they really did.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about, you want to talk about Leia or Vader?
Let's see. Well, we're 52 minutes into this thing, and we haven't even talked about Darth Vader. Like, Darth Vader almost needs he needs a whole episode just on him, because the story really is, I mean, up to episode 6, up until the end of episode 6, the story is about Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
It's not about Luke. It's about Anakin Skywalker and his rise and fall.
Yeah.
And ultimate, I mean, I guess you could call it redemption in the end there, where he kind of does the right thing with Emperor Palpatine, but Darth Vader is a deep, deep character, I think, because you have to look at it as two things. You have to look at the Anakin side of it, and then you have to look at the Sith side of it, where he's more or less brainwashed into this shit.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think the coolest scene in all 9 movies, to me, the coolest scene is when the Emperor goes and snatches his ass up out of that lava and plops him down in that fucking container and starts bolting on legs and shit like that. And he stands up. That is the coolest scene, man.
That's a good one in episode 3.
Sorry.
Pretty badass. All right. Sorry. No, it's all good, man.
Darth Vader's he is a fascinating character to me. I think it's because we get so much of his backstory.
Well, I mean, what's always been interesting to me about Darth/Anakin is his whole shift to the Sith is all based on love.
That's the story he tells himself.
Well, it is, right? But I mean, it's like the reason that he even turns to the dark side to begin with is because he has a desire to save. He keeps having these visions of Padme dying.
Yeah.
And he's trying to figure out a way to save her. and he believes that he can do it through the Force, but nobody on the Jedi side will teach him anything like that. And guess who offers it to him? Palpatine.
So does this classify into
he can't really do it either, but
does this classify into the bucket of doing bad shit for the right reasons?
Maybe.
Like, I don't know, the CIA killing JFK. We did bad shit for the right reasons. That's how they're going to justify it.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks more to if you get too hyper focused on one thing, or you have when you get to a point, and we've talked about this in goal planning, in goal setting, right? Like if you get to a place where you're so hyper focused on one thing, and you've made up your mind that there's only one way to get there, you're probably fucking yourself. Like you're probably setting yourself up for a pretty significant failure, right? And not that failure is necessarily a bad thing, but you're going to make your ability to do what you're trying to do so much harder than what it needs to be when you don't keep your aperture open, and you don't continue to listen and seek counsel, and you don't stay curious, and you start passing judgment. Like that's what's going to lead you down that road, where you believe that there's only one way that things can be done, and it's your way, and that's the only way, and you think that you're so right, and you're so cognitively rigid.
Ooh, big words.
That is the only way that things can get done, and that's how you end up going down a road like that.
Well, what do we used to say in the cockpit all the time, in almost every flight briefing when we talk about mid-air collision avoidance, channelized attention, task saturations? Dude, keep your cross-check going. Keep your head on a swivel.
Yep.
Right. So always be looking around. And I know you're going to get hyper focused on the goal that you're working on. In the pregame, we were talking about the different projects that I have going on, and I'm very hyper focused on those, and they're not necessarily in their own lanes. Like a lot of them bleed over into other things. And so I have to keep my cross check going. I have to work on this thing for a little bit, and then I have to work on that thing for a little bit. And I have to seek out new information, and I have to seek out other ways to crack the nut, so to speak. So in a lot of ways, I think you're spot on, man, where, at the end of episode 3, he kind of fell into that trap of, this is the only way to solve this problem. Obi-Wan, you're not giving me what I need. This dude is, I'm going with him.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, by the time you get to episode 6, he realizes, dude, I fucked up.
Yeah, I fucked it up.
I fucked that up bad.
Yeah, well, and not to mention the fact that you can make an argument in episode 3 that the whole reason Padme dies in childbirth is because she's found out that what's happened in his term.
It's under distress.
Or if that never happened, she may have never been under distress, and none of it would have actually gone on, right? So
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Sometimes we make our own messes for ourselves.
That's why I think Darth Vader's character, to look at him through 4, 5, and 6, it's almost a straight line. He starts out in the very first scene of episode 4. He's a bad guy, and everybody in the universe knows that he's a bad guy. And he really doesn't change that until the end of episode 6, where he had been a bad guy up until the last 60 seconds of his life. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, well, I'm going to save my kid.
And the other big takeaway too is, dudes, it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. Like you may have fucked some shit up.
Yeah.
Right.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. And it's never too late to pivot. Right. It's never too late to start this practice of self-inspection. It's never too late to circle back and say sorry to the people that you need to say sorry to, whether they accept it or not. It's not really about them. Right. It's never too late to start working in those directions.
Yeah, that's a good
You
point.
can make significant change in your life, man. You can completely change your vector, your outlook, your opportunities, your path.
Yeah.
You just have to have the courage to do it. And what happens sometimes, I think, is, we make mistakes in life, and those things kind of follow us to a certain extent. And then we start to believe the story that we have about ourselves, that this was my path. This is who I am. This is my nature. This is what I'm supposed to be about. So now I'm just going to be this way. And that's not necessarily a good place to be. I mean, did you hear it? If you listen to any podcast that talk to, vets that have come out of Rangers, Delta Force guys, whatever, that have come out of Afghanistan and Iraq in the last, 10, 20 years, some of those guys are get fucked up, right? Because that ops tempo and just combat all the time. And at some point you have to harden yourself to some of it, because when you're losing friends and you're seeing the kind of shit that those guys saw on a regular basis, you have to put blinders on. But the problem is if you don't take those blinders off when you come back,
that's hard.
You're who you think you are now. You think you're Terminator, you think you're Terminator Delta dude, and you're not. You're just Joe.
Yeah.
And all the people around you want Joe, not Terminator Delta dude. And that's how all of their relationships unravel. They end up divorced, or suicidal. I mean, it leads to all those different things. So,
dude, I fell into that trap coming back from a deployment. I did a almost 6-monther, and then a 6-monther, and then a 9-monther in the span of 3 years. Right. That's a high ops tempo, man. That's like boom, 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 boom. A lot of time away from home, a lot of time sleeping in a twin bed by myself, doing my own laundry, eating my own food, doing that kind of shit.
Doing
and every time I'm gone for 9 freaking months. Right. And I remember coming home from Afghanistan that last time after gone for 9 months. Katie came and picked me up at the airport in Nashville, and she had a hotel room for us. And there was no hanky panky that night. There was a lot of us sitting on our sides of the bed, just watching TV and being very quiet. And we had talked about this a lot coming up. This is one of the things that I encourage every couple to do is, man, you got to communicate. You got to talk about stuff. My 3 keys to a healthy marriage is money, communication, and sex. Simple, right? Keep those things in balance. Everything's good. Katie and I have always been very good at communicating with each other. And starting about a month out, we started having these conversations about when I come home, I'm going to need a little space.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, don't expect me to just jump into like the everyday chores. And the same is true for the spouse, because she's been doing everything since you've been gone. She's been getting the kids to school and fixing dinner and doing the household stuff. So there was a little bit of, I don't want to say friction, but it was a little weird.
Yeah.
Coming back.
Well,
and
you have to learn stuff. You have to set a new routine.
But in the example that you used, you're downrange, hardened Terminator mission. And then you come home and it's like the kids just want you to go out and throw the football with them.
Yeah.
Like, well, that doesn't check with like my gym time and my chow hall time kind of thing. So I think for about 10 days after I got home, I told the kids, it's like, guys, just, be patient with me a little bit. We're going to play. We're going to do fun things, but I'm also going to sit in my room for a little while, and just have some me time and kind of ease back into it a little bit. And thankfully my family was accommodating to that and didn't have a lot of, like rigorous schedules and shit like that for us to follow.
Anyway, I think that's kind of the big arc for Vader too. And I think those are some of the key takeaways for the stuff that we talk about on the podcast.
Yeah. When you just look at it, when you just take out 4, 5, and 6, I think his character arc is not even an arc at all. It's almost like a flat line with a little blip.
Yeah,
at the end.
That's very true.
Because he just starts out bad and he ends up.
Yeah.
I was disappointed in this. I was disappointed that George Lucas didn't have the foresight. When you listen to the conversations that Yoda has and Obi-Wan has in 4, 5, and 6, you see those reflected back in 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And you can see, oh yeah, man, he talked about that. That was really cool. This is an oversight, I think, a detailed oversight that drives me nuts. When Luke takes off Vader's helmet at the end of 6, and he's an old man.
Up man.
Like, dude,
old man.
At best, Luke is 30 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And at most, Anakin was what, 20, maybe 20. So, this guy's not old. You and I are sitting here at 50-ish years old, and that's about what Anakin or Darth Vader would have been when that helmet got removed. And he looked like an old ass man.
Yeah, he did.
I was disappointed. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
And they didn't have the oversight to overdub James Earl Jones's voice on the old white guy that was speaking with his helmet off. Maybe the helmet modulated it to make it sound like James Earl Jones.
This is true. Anyways, it's never too late to make changes. And you know what, I'll tell you this, like, I know we focus a lot on younger guys, but I can't tell you how many quote unquote older guys Roscoe and I have talked to or have had reach out to us because of the podcast that are in their 40s, 50s, even 60s, that are just starting this process now. So it's never too late.
Never too late. That's a really good point, man.
So
I feel like we could talk about Darth Vader for forever, but in the interest of time, that's pretty much like the main group, right?
Well, Leia. We haven't talked about.
I guess Leia's. She's a main character too.
Yep.
Starting in the beginning, she was always sort of working for this, something bigger than herself.
Yeah, she's always working for the greater good.
She was always working for something bigger than her.
She's probably the most self-aware of the group at the start.
She was kind of bitchy.
Yeah.
In the first one, and
she got better.
She got better towards the end. She was a little bitchy. And I hated that she seemed ungrateful in some cases. And the best example of that is when they come to rescue her. And Luke takes off his helmet and goes, "Hi, I'm here to rescue you." And she goes, "What the fuck? You're a kid." Instead of saying, "Oh, thank you, let's get the fuck out of here."
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
But I think at least in the beginning, she's probably the most self-aware and the most stable of all of them. Like because I think Leia from the beginning, like she knows who she is, she knows what she's about, and she knows what she's trying to do.
Well, look at her upbringing too.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, right. Completely different upbringing.
Yeah.
And obviously I think she's more mature than Luke, just because again, her upbringing, being brought up by a senator in the Galactic Senate. She just has a lot more exposure. She's been exposed to a lot more of
well-traveled,
the world, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that I thought that was interesting was like the one thing that she struggles with though at the beginning, I think, is attachment. Like she doesn't want to get too attached to anything, especially people. She likes to hold things at an arm's length, right? Because, and my guess is she's got this greater good thing going on her and so she doesn't want to get too much attachment because she doesn't want that to affect how she makes decisions.
Is it that, or she's a princess on a pedestal?
Well, it might be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
At the beginning, because she makes hard decisions, right? Like she goes, "Okay, close the doors," even though she knows Luke's out on Hoth. And but sometimes she doesn't. Like she has to have. I mean, again, going back to Han, this is where he's good under pressure. They're getting the shit kicked out of him on Hoth. Like the fucking ceilings are crashing in around them. And he finally comes up to her and he goes, "You got to give the evacuation notice. We got to get out of here."
That's it. We're out of here.
Yeah. He's like, "You're done.
Yeah.
We can't keep going." Right. And she finally does. But anyways, I
can see the attachment piece of it because she was really resistant to you could tell that she kind of had a crush on Luke and Han at the same time almost.
Gross.
And she was really resistant to that. Yeah, gross. But it took a lot for her to let that guard down a little bit.
Yeah.
And once she did, though, you can see her kind of open up to it.
Oh yeah, and totally soften too, right?
Yeah.
And that goes back to what you were talking about, how, on the Republic side, it's all about these individuals that we're talking about building relationships with one another, and how much they come to mean to each other. I mean, you even see it with just Chewie, who obviously you can't have a lot of dialogue for a guy that just goes R all the time, and then somebody kind of has to explain what he's saying, through ad lib or whatever. But like anytime Chewie's around in 5 or 6, there's always like a big embrace, or you can see like the emotion that they start to share with each other. And
well, everybody loved
Chewie
for
each other. Well, how can you not?
Everybody loved
Chewie. Fucking best.
Yeah, he's the Bob of the group.
He liked Chewie. Yeah, that's right.
He is. He's totally the Bob of the group. Quiet, cool, does what he's supposed to do.
Gets it done.
Goes out, fuck shit up.
Always.
I mean,
he rages.
Like, hey, look, I stole an AT-AT Walker. Is that cool?
You guys good? You want me to blow that door for you so we can get the mission done?
Right. Yeah. Chewie was, he was good.
Yeah.
Everybody loved him.
But so Leia, I think she's just kind of the most well-rounded, except that she's afraid of attachment at the beginning, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. And really it was when they were in that snake's anus on that asteroid that, her and Han kissed or whatever. And then she was like, "Oh, fuck." And she runs away when C-3PO comes and breaks up the party, But from that point on, you could see that she kind of let her guard down just a little bit.
And dude, she fucking kills Jabba the Hutt in a bikini.
Right?
That's pretty badass.
Choke that dude out, man.
With a big old chain.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm telling you, man.
I think she had the Force. I think she didn't know it, but I think that because her and Luke,
they allude to it because they could talk to each other, kind of, or sense each other.
They were also twins, so and you hear a lot about the twin connection and shit like that. I don't have a twin, so I don't know, but I've heard a lot about twins having kind of this subconscious connection kind of thing, and but I think that, I mean, it makes complete sense. She's a Skywalker. It makes complete sense that it was in her blood too.
Yeah.
And I was kind of laughing with Katie about, she says, "Well, why can't she be a Jedi? Why can't she do this?" And I said, well, maybe it's like the movie Twins where she's Danny DeVito. And
you know what though? I haven't read the books, but if I remember correctly, I believe in the book she actually does become a Jedi.
She probably does.
Yeah.
She's probably a closet badass, man.
Yeah, I'm sure she
come
is.
out and do some fucking kickboxing ninja shit.
Yeah, well, she was wrecking shit for the rebels for a long time.
What's the offshoot or the not offshoot's the wrong word. The show that's not part of the movies, but it's a show, Osaka, or something. Is that what it is?
That's one of them. They had an Obi-Wan.
That chick is bad.
Yeah, she's badass.
She's bad.
She was Anakin's Padawan.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's tough.
Yeah, she's good.
Still though, one of the best fight scenes was anything involving Yoda in 1 through 3.
Oh, yeah.
The way he flipped around and shit.
Yeah.
And
CGI is a wonderful
General
whatever
started with a D, I think.
Yeah, I know.
General Daku or something like that.
I know.
There's a robot that had the 2 spinny lightsaber thingies. That was pretty
Grievous. General
Grievous. There you go. I was way off. Sorry. Now Leia was really good. I think she had a little maternal instinct too, as a protector of the group. And towards the end of at the end of episode 4, she's the boss. She's standing up there giving the medals and hating on Chewie. But by the end of episode 6, she's just kind of part of the team.
Yeah.
Right. She's no longer on a pedestal. She's just kind of part of the team.
Yeah. I agree with that. So here's a couple questions I have.
Okay.
And I know it, and these are just random thoughts by CAS. Because I know it doesn't align with it's a fucking movie, right? And they've got a plot and all that bullshit. But like seriously, dude, like why are the Jedi's hiding? Why don't they just fucking regroup and fight back? Like seriously, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like I get it, and it's funny because we keep getting Alpha 4, 5, and 6. But I saw an interview with Mark Hamill when he came back to do Luke for 7, 8, 9, and he was like, this is bullshit. He goes, Luke wouldn't run off and hide for the rest of his life on some faraway planet because of what happened. He may have taken a year off to regroup, but he's fucking Luke Skywalker.
That's true.
You know, he would have restarted. He would have tried to do what he was supposed to do. He would have, like that hero's journey piece, right? He would have gone on to pass on the lessons learned that he had been given through Yoda. And I get that it's a movie and they've got to have their things in it, but like, come on, man.
Okay, so in
which I know that they kill most of them with Order 66 in episode 3. Like there's a few Jedis that survive, Obi-Wan, Yoda.
Yeah. But they disperse. They go to ground for a few decades, it seems like. That situation with Luke though, you remember in I think it was in Infinity Wars where Thor goes to that dying star and gets with the thing, but the guy had like these Thanos had iron fists or whatever. It's like
Thanos had made it so
I can't make it. So I'm wondering if Luke going into hiding like that was him tying his own hands so that he couldn't do bad shit because he saw the way Kylo Ren fucked up that little village of little Padawans and younglings. Was Luke putting himself in timeout? Basically, and going, all I've done is create bad shit, so I'm going to the mountains.
Let's go be one, change one. So you fuck it away and you fail. Do you go, oh well, fuck, I guess I'll go into hiding for the rest of my life, or do you take the fucking lessons learned, figure out how to do it better, and reattempt?
If you're Luke Skywalker, you go drink milk out of whatever that fucking thing was, and
so gross. Never mind. Here's the other thing I don't get. Right, so sit still in absolutes. You hear that all the time from the Jedi, especially in 1, 2, and 3. Sit still in absolutes. But Yoda's always like, there is no
do or do not.
Do or do not. There is no try. Like they're fucking talking. They talking absolutes all the time. What the fuck's up with that?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I do think that I do like that mentality of, hey, man, if you're gonna attempt to do something, if you're gonna set a goal out there and you're gonna attempt to do something, then you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the goal to go all in, man.
Yeah.
You got to go all in, because if you half-ass it, you're going to get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to belief. You have to find a way to believe, right? Because let's go to episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. He's on Dagobah, right? And he's like, I can't do it. What you're asking me to do is too hard, when he's telling him, you can pull the X-Wing out of the fucking swamp, you dumbass.
Whether it's a rock or a fighter.
And Yoda's like, when you look at me, do you think I'm too small to do things?
Yeah.
Just because do you judge me based on my stature? And then he pulls the fucking X-Wing out of, he just goes, watch this, hold my beer, right?
Yeah, right.
He pulls the X-Wing out of the fucking swamp, you know, and he goes, I can't believe you did that. And he goes, and that's why you don't.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's all about, because the Force is kind of like, you know, this ethereal thing that you've got to be able to figure out how to sense and how to pull power from all the things around you because it's everywhere. And, you know, so I think that part of that is like, but that's transferable too, right? Like, dudes, you're going to be faced with things sometimes that are going to seem really hard or even impossible to do. I mean, you and I have faced that in my career. I didn't know if I was going to become a fighter pilot. I didn't know if I was going to make it through pilot training, let alone get a fighter, or, you know, or if I was going to do well when I got to F-16 training, or, you know, when I got to an operational squadron, if I was going to be, fuck, man, when I went to weapons school, I was like, I'll be home in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When I first showed up, I'm like, there's no way, right? So yeah, you know, but you do it, right? Yeah. You have to, at some point you have to find, and that comes with time and a little bit of maturity and some wins, like we talk about, set small wins up, build a little confidence. That all parlays into, you know, you being able to take those next steps. But I think that's what it's about, man, is you got to generate a little bit of belief. You have to believe that you can do it. You have to believe that you can attempt it, or at least attempt it. Right?
That's really powerful. And Tony Robbins, legendary motivational speaker and a lot about mindset and shit like that. He told this story one time about this guy that found this shipwreck back in the 90s or whatever. And he had to believe three things, right? He had to believe that the treasure was there. First of all, you had to truly believe that it's there, not just some fucking hokey story that's been passed down. You had to believe that it was worth it to find it. And you had to believe that you're the one that's going to do it. Yeah. Right. So those three things. So when you put all that together, it's like any other goal that you set, man. You have to believe, first of all, you have to think, okay, if I do this goal, is it going to be worth it? You have to believe it, that if I do 75 hard, it's going to be worth it in the end. If I want to get the college degree, it's going to be worth it at the end. Yeah. Right. And you have to believe in yourself that you can actually accomplish this. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Yeah. That's in fact probably the opposite.
Yeah, well, I think what was cool too was that whole scene on Dagobah where, you know, he's putting Luke through the ringer and making him run around with him on his back, and he's doing all the Jedi shit. Like, the whole point of that was kind of what we talked with Dr. John about, right? Which was he's trying to get Luke to focus on the process, and not the end result. Like, these are the steps that you have to go through, man, to get the end result you want. But focus on what we're trying to do. Focus on what I'm trying to teach you. Focus on what you're supposed to be getting out of this moment right now.
That's right.
And not worrying about how you're going to get the X-Wing out of the swamp.
I had that exact thing written down, was focus on the moment. Yeah. Be in the moment. That's you're standing there with one hand, balancing all this shit and lifting the rock, and you let one thought creep into your mind and it all fell down. Yep. You have to be in the moment and focus on what you have to focus on right now to accomplish the mission.
That's right. So that goes back to what we talk about too, right, man? If you got a big task in front of you, break it down into chunks and focus on the next step, right? That's it's left foot, right foot. Don't get too far down the road. Focus on the process. Don't worry about the outcome so much, and you'll get there, man.
Well, have you seen, I use this analogy a lot with people that I coach up, and have you seen those, the dominoes competitions? Yeah. Where there's a fucking gazillion dominoes on the floor, and you knock one over, and then all of a sudden, like a flower balloons or a battleship shoots the bad guy or something like that. That's what I use. Is I say, look, man, you got a floor full of dominoes, and you got to knock them down one at a time. It's just whatever's the next domino in front, knock that fucker down and move on to the next one. If you start worrying about what the picture's going to look like and get wrapped up in the scoreboard, that's when you're going to screw it up.
Well, and again, I know it's a movie, but just think if Luke would have focused on being in the moment and let go of that impatience, maybe he could have gotten ready in time to go face Vader the first time.
Maybe.
You know?
That's a pretty tight turn.
My point is just that, right? Focus on the process, not the outcome.
But Vader was playing him like a fucking trumpet, though, man. He knew that shit. He knew, just like he got played with Padme. Oh, yeah. He goes, oh, yeah, man. I just got a tug on this string over here called Leia and Han and Chewie. Put them in a little duress, and he's going to come running.
Yeah, he's going to come running. Yep.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Vader's not an idiot. No. Well, because he had the same play ran against him.
Yeah, no shit, right? So, he learned from his.
Yeah, exactly. I have a question.
Yeah.
Favorite character?
Han Solo.
Han Solo?
In 4, 5, 6?
Yeah.
Han. Well, I mean, Vader. Can we pick one dark, one light? I mean, I love Darth Vader. He's like so fucking epic in every way. Like he's just so fucking epic.
That is a big character, man.
He is one of my favorite things. One of the greatest memories I have in my life is us at Disneyland, and there's a Darth Vader character meet, and it's me, Danny, Senna, and Alicia, and they take you around this corner, and they've got it set up like he's on the battleship, one of the battleships.
Yeah.
And
they're called Star Destroyers.
Star Destroyer, sorry. And you walk in there, and dude, this dude had to have been 6'5".
Yeah, he's huge.
6'5". And he's in the full thing, and it's got the going on. And Alicia is just fucking terrified, right? Because we grew up with Star Wars, and it's impressive because you turn the corner and there is this huge fucking Darth Vader staring at you.
That's cool.
And you walk in there and it's all dark, it's kind of and everything. And she grabs Senna and she pushes her in front of him and she goes, "Take her, she's evil, she'll serve you well." It's the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh, it was
that's like our zombie reaction plan at the White House is we just have to outrun mom. We're going to use mom as bait and run away.
It was so good.
When I was a kid, I had it was about this big, maybe what, 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall-ish, but it was a Darth Vader helmet and shoulders, and it was your carrying case for your little men.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
There wasn't a Han Solo one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, Vader's epic, but I think I relate most with Han. Even when I was a kid, like I was like, I'm probably not a Jedi, but I could fucking shoot a blaster and fly a Millennium Falcon around.
I don't know, man. I mean, it's so easy to pick the big ones. I picked Chewie. I really like Chewie's character. I think Chewie's just like an everyman.
Yeah.
He can fix shit. He can fuck shit up. I mean, he can shoot a blaster and a crossbow. I mean,
he
can drive anything. He's just kind of a jack of all trades.
He survives everything too.
He's been around for a while though. He was in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And Yoda was like riding on his shoulders and shit.
Yep.
So he's a couple minutes old.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought Chewie was. What about best scene? Best scene in 4, 5, 6. Tough.
That is tough.
Yeah.
But for me, I would probably say that the best scene is the classic lightsaber battle in 5.
That's
between him.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And because it's, they're in that room, that chamber for the cryo freeze or whatever,
it's all black,
it's all
red,
dark, and there's the hoses going off and there's the steam. And so everything's kind of reflecting the light of the lightsabers. And it's just, I would say that's probably my favorite scene of the 3.
I thought the fight scene at the end of 6 was a better fight scene because Luke could handle his lightsaber a little bit better, and it just made for a better fight.
Yeah.
A little bit more swordplay, so to speak. I liked the Dagobah scenes. I liked all those because I think Yoda's really trying. I mean, and he pushed back a lot in the beginning of that scene where, I mean, he's kind of playing like a kid for a while. He's 900 fucking years old, right?
Yeah.
He's an old man that's going to die next week, but he kind of plays it up a little bit. He's playing a character.
Oh, he's filling out Luke.
Yeah, he's playing a character.
Talked to Ben,
and then he goes, "Dude,
I can't teach this kid.
This kid's a punk.
Yeah,
I can't do this shit.
That's right.
No, he's too old.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of fear and hate, and all this shit. But I really thought that whole scene, everything that happens on Dagobah, I just really like that. And I think that you can start to see, if you just took all of those scenes and put them back to back and played them, I think that you can really see in a quick fashion, you can see Luke's character arc.
Well, yeah, that's the trend. That's where the transformation really begins, right?
Yeah. I thought that was really powerful. Cool, man.
All right, brother.
You want to go for another hour and 22 minutes about Star Wars shit? Because I mean, we haven't even gotten into. We didn't talk about the droids or the Jawas or the Ewoks. I mean, so this is something that I said earlier that a lot of people won't notice. If you watch the remastered 4, 5, 6, right at the end of 6, they blow up the space station and they're all partying down in Ewok Village. In the remastered ones, they didn't play the Nub Nub song.
Is that the one where when Luke sees Yoda in
Yes.
Obi. It has
Anakin.
It has
as,
Christian Hayden's
yes.
character as Anakin. Yeah.
Instead of old guy.
Yeah.
So completely different ending. And I was looking forward to the Nub Nub song, and they didn't fucking play it.
Sorry about that, brother.
Sorry. All right. What else you got on?
That's it, man.
Star Wars.
Star Wars 4, 5. What?
4, 5. What? We'll have to come back and do a 1, 3 and a
7,
and
9.
a 7, 9.
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
We'll have to figure out the order for that.
Yeah.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Man. Hey, be the change.
Be the one.
Thanks for flying with the Be One Change One podcast. If you got something out of this show, then be the one and share it in your circles of influence.
You can be our wingman through our website at www.be1change1.com. That's B and the number 1, change and the number 1.com.
We invite you to be the one and join our fighter squadron on social media at Be1Change1 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow us at Paul Roscoe White on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as Roscoe's website, www.paulroscoewhite.com.
You can email us from the website and please leave comments, share, and ask questions, or leave ideas of things you would like to discuss on future podcasts. Most importantly, be the one that helps us win the algorithm by leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thanks for joining. Until next time, be the one.